the rational review, looking at number 8, we've got a list of vertical asymptotes, the horizontal asymptotes, the holes, and the domain. So we're going to have holes, and then we're going to find vertical asymptotes, and then we're going to find horizontal asymptotes, and then we're going to look at the domain. So I like to start with doing my horizontal asymptote. I have an x squared in the top and an x in the bottom. If the numerator exponent is larger, there is no horizontal asymptote, so there's none. Then you need to factor the top because it's difference of squares, and that becomes x minus 3 and x plus 3. So you should realize that the x minus 3 is going to cancel. This causes a hole at x equal 3. Remember, it's going to be the opposite sign. There's nothing left in the bottom that could cause a vertical asymptote, so there's not one. If something cancels and causes a hole, it cannot also cause a vertical asymptote. So then to find your domain, you look at the hole and the vertical asymptote. There's no vertical asymptote, but there is a hole, so your domain is x is not equal to 3. So then you would put that in at y equal and go to your table. I'm actually just going to figure this out in my head. If I put 0 in for x, I would get 3. If I put 1 in, I would get 4. If I put 2 in, I would get 5. So you have a line like this, but I have a hole at x equal 3, so go to where x is 3. 1, 2, 3, go up to your graph and draw a circle. So looking at number 9, same thing. We're going to do hole, we're going to do vertical asymptote, we're going to do horizontal asymptote, and we're going to take domain. So for horizontal asymptote, these are the same. So you do have one, y is equal to, and you take your coefficients. So it's 2 over 1, which is 2. Then you're going to need to factor. So 2 times 12 is 24. Factors of 24 are 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. Signs are different. The largest is negative, and it needs to equal -5. So we're going to use 3 and -8, but you can't go there yet. You got to pull down your 2x squared, bring over your plus 3x minus 8x, pull down your minus 12, cut it in half, pull out an x, and you have 2x plus 3, minus, pull out a 4, and you have 2x plus 3. So the top, let me change colors here, the top is actually going to be 2x plus 3 and x minus 4. And the bottom is difference of squares, and so that becomes x minus 4 and x plus 4. So now we're going to notice that the x minus 4 cancels. That causes a hole at x equal positive 4. We still have something in the bottom, so that causes a vertical asymptote. X is equal to -4. So you look at the hole and the vertical asymptote for your domain. X cannot be 4. X cannot be -4. So then you want to go and do your asymptotes on your graph. Y equal positive 2, so we have a horizontal line there. And x equal -4, so we have a vertical line there. So you would go and put the original problem in at y equal using parentheses and go look at your table. Find a number smaller than -4. So if I go with -5, you're going to say -7 over -1, so 7. So -5 would actually be up at 7. All it takes really is 1 point because you're forced to curve here and you're forced to curve here. So this is what your graph would look like. Then pick a number over to the right. I'm going to go with 0. And so 0 would give me 3 over 4. So it goes 0 and go up 3/4. And then it's forced to curve and it's forced to curve. So there's your graph. The last 3 are like what we did with the Skittles, where you had to build a function. So draw your fraction. A vertical asymptote at x equal -2 means x plus 2 has to go in the bottom. And a hole at x equal 3 means x minus 3 has to cancel. So x minus 3 has to go in the top and the bottom. And you're done. I'm not going to make you distribute or anything. You can leave it like that. Number 11, you have a horizontal asymptote at y equal 3. We'll save that for last. You have a hole at x equal -2, so that means x plus 2 on the top and x plus 2 on the bottom. So now let's go back to our horizontal asymptote. That means that we've got to have the same exponent, which we do. And so your coefficients have to come down to be 3 over 1. So if I just put a 3 on the top, that gives me a 3, and then there's just a 1 on the bottom that you don't have to write. Number 12, you have a vertical asymptote at x equal 2, which means you have an x minus 2 on the bottom. You have a vertical asymptote at -4, so that means you have an x plus 4 on the bottom. You have a horizontal asymptote at y equals 0, which means the exponent in the denominator must be bigger. I have an x squared in the denominator, so an x or no x can go on the top. So you could put a 1 here, you could put an x here, you could put a 3 here, you could put 1,000 here. You got to put something here. You can't leave the top empty. And that's all there is to it. You've got your 3 functions built. Okay, so make sure and watch the rest of that other video, because that stuff's important too. You just don't have to write it down. But I encourage you to take a minute and look at it. Come see me if you have any questions.